Hi, everyone. My name is Edith Yeung. Welcome to our this is January 31st in North America, but it's already February in Hong Kong. Welcome to Founders Hong Kong, our February 2024 conversation for this month with Allen Lau. Just to remind you, if this is the first time you're joining us on this channel, Founders Hong Kong is all about connecting, helping, supporting Hong Kong startup community, founders and investors to connect with very experienced founders and investors all around the world that love Hong Kong, are originally from Hong Kong. So today I want to bring up Allen Lau. I'm very proud of a professional setting here. Allen, I'm so glad our friend Casey Lau connected us,
Mhm.
also the Lau family, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so before Casey, I'm so fascinated by your story being the founder of Wattpad, and because of you, okay, I signed up as a Wattpad user. Really wanted to understand like why so many Gen Z and user love this storytelling platforms.
Mhm.
But today, yeah, thank you so much for taking time to hang out with us.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, totally. So I'm gonna get right into it.
Yeah.
Just to start with, how did you come up with the idea of Wattpad? Like, what is Wattpad?
Mhm.
Wattpad. If anybody wanted to check it out, like,
Mhm.
yeah, like tell us about like the original founding story. We love to learn more.
Yeah, maybe let me perhaps step back since this is Founders Hong Kong. I'll share some of my background. I was born and raised in Hong Kong, and then our whole family moved to Canada. I'm based in Toronto. Uh, when I was 19 years old. So I was all my upbringing was from Hong Kong, and then my almost my entire adult life is in North America, specifically in Toronto, in Canada. So anyway, keep a long story short, back to the early days question. I after I graduated from engineering school, got my master, and then I joined a startup company. Um, it was one of the most successful startup company in Canada at that time. When the founders sold the company, started an incubator. I joined the incubator, and that's where I started my first company. I was the CTO and co-founder of Tira Wireless. As Keep that part short, it's a mobile gaming studio in a way, but also a mobile technology um, software company. But there's one tiny secret: I don't play games. I don't even watch movie, which is kind of embarrassing when you
What?
see. Yeah, I'll come back to this point when we talk
You have to
about
even own
movies.
dogs to it. You
Now I
can't
now
go.
I change. Now I change. But if you look at 20 years ago, the Allen now, the media consumption is only about one thing: reading. I love to read. So in my spare time, remember it was 2002. The most popular phone at that time was not the iPhone, because iPhone did not exist. It was the candy bar Nokia phone. If you are old enough, you might remember the Motorola flip phone. So that was that era. And in my spare time, I built a mobile reading app. Um, and really quickly, I realized on those tiny, tiny screen, no one would read on that phone, because to read a paragraph, you have to scroll down a million times. You have to press the down arrow a million times. There was no touch screen, right? So the prototype did not work. Um, I didn't even launch it. I just parked the idea because it didn't pass my quality bar in terms of the product. And then fast forward to um, year 2006. At that time, the phone screen, even though it was still pre-iPhone, the screen size was getting larger. Instead of 3 lines of text, people can read 10 lines of text at a time. So I thought, okay, the market is ready. Let me resurrect this idea and kind of rebuild continue on my prototype that I put aside 4 years before this. It was 2006. And then out in the blue, a very good friend of mine, his name is Ivan. Ivan Yeung also came from Hong Kong originally, but I think he moved to Canada when he was 5 years old. Anyway, we were good friends for many years. He was also working for Tira at one point, and then I received a text message from him. Hey, Alan, I'm working on a new product idea. Can I share the link with you, and can you give me some feedback? And guess what I saw? He was building the exact same thing. He was building a mobile reading app on the feature phones at that time. So it's so obvious to us we should join forces and start building a company together. And one thing quite interesting is not only is his prototype not only was a mobile reading app, but he also built a website where people can freely share their stories. As you can see, this is like the genesis of Wattpad. For context, at that time, YouTube was 1 year old. YouTube started to take off, so user-generated content became a thing. So we just worked on this idea, and 15 years later, we had 100 million users around the world. Oh, you're on mute, Edith.
Oh, wow, I'm very unprofessional. All right. So when you first started, this is so interesting because you mentioned when you started, there was 1 year after YouTube started, but then also it was 2 years before the iPhone.
Yes, yes and no, because literally a month after we launched, a gentleman called Steve Jobs announced a new product called iPhone.
Yeah,
But the version 1 of the iPhone did not have any app store. The app store only came 2 years afterwards.
I
So
see.
yeah, so in a way you're right, but in a way you're also not completely right, because yes, the iPhone that we all love and use, it was really started in 2008 actually.
So okay, so two of you both have wanted to build like a reading app on
Hmm.
feature phone,
Yeah,
and you launched it.
yeah.
I think I'm old enough. Had a Nokia and a BlackBerry and all the above. And I guess once you launch it, then what? Like, because this is so much more than just the app, right? You need to find these writer
uh,
authors, and how do you get people on board? And it's a two-sided marketplace. Like, how do I think about it when you build things like this?
right, you're absolutely right. It, of course, we are talking about 20 years ago, right?
Right.
Double-sided marketplace was not in anyone's dictionary. It didn't exist, this type of
I see.
concept, right? But we kind of realized, wait a minute, we had the chicken and egg problem, right? Without any writers uploading any content, I would not be able to attract any readers. Without any readers, there's no reason for any writers to upload any content. They can't find the
Yep.
audience, right? So we have
Yep.
to overcome that. So we had a brilliant idea, and now in hindsight, it actually was the right idea, but it took much longer than we expected to gain traction. The idea was we just uploaded um, 20,000 public domain books, from Pride and Prejudice to all the works from Charles Dickens. We uploaded that, so we kind of seeded the supply side.
Okay.
At least um, when on day one, we have content to attract readers. Might not be the user generated content, might not be the vampire stories or fan fiction that you see in Wattpad today, but at
Yep.
least we have the content to attract people, and that kind of work. What we what didn't work was because YouTube set such a high bar for us. In the first year, YouTube went from 0 user to like 10, 20 million users in 1 year. So
Wow.
we thought, well, yeah, perhaps in the first year we will be able to attract maybe 1 million users. Kind of
Mhm.
modest compares
Yeah.
to YouTube. We got it exactly right, except that we missed by 3 zeros. Instead of 1 million, we only attracted maybe 1,000
Mm.
after 9 months. So um, the growth strategy did not quite pan out the way we expected.
Yep.
But what we also realized in hindsight, perhaps a few years afterwards, sometimes it's like pushing a snowball downhill. Uh, Initially, it might roll a little bit slow, but once you get the ball rolling, it will just go faster and faster and faster. So in our case, it just took much longer than we expected to see the first piece of real UGC content, because I don't count the Charles Dickens, right? The first
Uh-huh.
UGC content came almost 2 years after we started the company. The upload
Oh,
button was always there, but not a single person clicked on that for 2 years.
wow. Wow. So I guess like okay for the first year, it's only a thousand people. That's like for a lot of people probably like I probably would give up already because
Mhm.
there's not a lot of people. But at what point you realize that you finally was it like the first you like user generated content upload? You're like I'm onto something. So like at what point you decided you really on the trajectory of growth? What exactly that happened that drive that? Oh, and by the way, is
Mhm.
it all in English content? Is it mostly just US, Canada in terms of
Oh, I'll
audience?
come back to the US, Canada, because I think it's highly relevant to the Hong Kong entrepreneurs. This is a very important point. I'll come back to it. Um, so we actually so close to giving up after a year. If you have a B2B SaaS company with 1,000 customers in the first year,
That's pretty
congratulations.
good.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
made it, right? For a consumer product that is free, you give it away for free, but only 1,000 people would use it. You suck. So
Yeah.
we almost gave up, and that's the honest answer. But uh, at the end, we um, uh, we realized we both believe in this idea. Perhaps we can continue, but not on a full-time basis. Perhaps
Mm,
we'll find some contract work to do. Perhaps we'll do something else in the meantime, but kind of put it into the back burner, but not completely turning this off. So uh, Ivan and I, we started another company on the side. It's a mobile advertising startup, and that one took off in a small way. So after a year, mobile advertising was like still it was in its infancy. The company
mm.
got acquired. That company, the advertising company, got acquired after a
Oh,
year.
nice.
But yeah, it's nice. As a small acquisition. It's not any major acquisition, but it gave us two things. Number one, while we were working on the mobile advertising idea,
Mm,
whenever we have a spare time, whenever we have a new idea about Wattpad, we just quickly like implement this, and roll this out. And the acquisition also gave us, like personally, both of us a little bit more runway. Once the
yep.
company is sold, we could go back to Wattpad and spend more time on Wattpad. And these two things actually just work in our favor. In a way, I have to say, luck fell on our lap. But
Mm,
at the same time, I would say for any good entrepreneurs would tell you, when you see luck fell on your lap, seize the opportunity, capture it. So we have a little bit more capital, we had a little bit more time, and as you ask about how we bootstrap the double-sided marketplace,
yeah.
and there's one very powerful thing for double-sided marketplace to grow. That is time. Because initially, as I mentioned, the snowball rolled down the hill slowly, but give it enough time. When we grow from 1,000 to 2,000, 2,000
Mm.
to 4,000, and eventually we had almost 100,000, 200,000 users. We have sufficient audience on the platform, and the writers notice, right? They
Right.
saw people with comment on Pride and Prejudice. Oh, this is not a dead website that has no traffic. There are people doing this. Oh, by the way, there's an upload button. Let me try this. All it takes is the first person. Then we
Right.
have the first piece of content. It might not be the most amazing, but once you have the first one, you know, everyone wants to be a second one. No one wants to be his first one. But once you see someone coming, then the first one attracted the second one through perhaps word of mouth because the first writer told other people to come check out the story,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And the readers told the second writer, and then it just snowball. So as I mentioned, it took 2 years to get the first UGC on our platform. But then within, I would say, 6 months, we have another 1,000 writers starting to upload content. And we start to have a lot of original content.
Mm.
So I would say uh, the, the, the time that we realized the product really took off was about a year after the first piece of content. 3 years after we started, first piece of content uploaded, then we realized we are really, really onto something that is massive.
Nice. Just also, I did a little bit of homework
Mm.
today. At least on your website, you have 97 million user
Yeah.
on Wattpad that
Hmm.
spent 26 billion minutes. This now is definitely substantial numbers of users.
Hmm.
And I guess from take 2 or 3 years, the first piece of content, 1,000, another 6 months, 1,000 writers submitted their original content, and then later on, sort of grow from there. So this whole time, at what point you realize, you know what, I should probably raise some money from investor now, because it
Yeah.
seems like there's some real traction. Sort of, what was your thought process and thinking? At what point you're like, okay, maybe I should have some outside money?
Yeah, it was after 3 years after we realized, okay, maybe we are really onto something, and we simply cannot bootstrap the company. The capital would unlock the growth that the bootstrap kind of mentality would not be able to do. We need to hire more, way more engineers than the two of us. As simple as that, right? So we raised a seed round towards the end of 2009, in early
Mm,
2010, roughly 3-4 years after we started the company, and then a year later we raised our Series A from Unit Square Ventures, and then another year later we raised our Series B from Coastal Ventures.
And each of these step, when you 1 year later, are you looking at like 100% or 200% year over year growth? That's how some of the traction that the VC expected from you.
Yeah, we were. I don't think we never get to 100% year-over-year growth, but it was pretty close.
Mm,
I think the nature of the product, unlike YouTube or TikTok, video or images, they are much more shareable, right?
yeah,
Just the nature of the product doesn't give us the viral growth as high as other comparable UGC platforms. But the difference is when people read, it's not a 2 minute video.
yep,
They spend hours on reading, so we kind of compensate the you know, close to 100% year-over-year growth is nothing to be ashamed of, but compared to YouTube, it was like 400% or something,
yeah,
right? But we made up on the engagement. Our engagement is like off the charts because
yeah.
people spend hours reading. So, yeah, so we were on that, typical venture-back company growth trajectory.
Mm,
And the reason why I mentioned engagement is because actually the number of users, they were never our number one KPI because we focus on not just the user but total reading time. That has always been our north star metric, and that is absolutely more than 100%.
Got it. So now switch topic to monetization.
Yep.
Okay, now you have millions of users now.
Yep.
Did you think about how you make money from day one, or is it a little bit afterthoughts?
Well, when we were bootstrapping, we thought about making money. We put some advertisements on the website, but when you have no traffic, no matter how high the CPM, zero times $1,000 is still zero, right? So
Yeah.
it's really immaterial, I would say. And then when we raised Series A, that was a very interesting story. Thanks for asking this, because we already have like 1 million users by then
Mm,
when we raised Series A, and the advertising revenue was okay. For a bootstrapped company, we can feed ourselves. That kind of money is it's not like venture scale revenue, but
yep.
okay. And uh, Albert Wenger from Union Square Ventures, he almost put this on the term sheet, and I almost fell off the chair when he mentioned this to me. Uh, One of the conditions for them to invest in us is I have to get rid of all the S. I literally call him up on mobile, like, Albert, did I misread this? You want us? It took us 4 years to get to the revenue, like we that can feed ourselves. You ask us to go back to zero?
Yeah.
Are
Wow.
you kidding me? And
He's
and
bold.
he said
Okay.
no. Well, no, it's not a typo, because I think your user experience is not great because you over advertise, and your number
Mm,
one goal right now is grow the user base, grow the usage, so that people are just cannot stop using your product. Once you
mm,
have that, there are a million ways to monetize. We can worry about that later. And he was absolutely right in hindsight. But I was also absolutely right to push back. Both are
mhm.
right. And at the end, we did not get rid of the advertisement because his problem was the poor user experience. I got that. I got the message, and I agree with that because we were bootstrapping the company. Of course, we have to
Right.
like be a little bit over aggressive in terms of S. So now we have the venture capital, um, the cash in a bank. We can afford to improve our user experience, maybe still monetize lightly, because
Mm,
we don't want to set the expectation that this will be forever ad free. So
yep.
this is a fine balance that solves all the different problems. We learn about how to monetize through advertising
Right.
lightly, keep the user experience, basically met both objectives.
Got it. And then later on, now if when I go to your site, or even there's a Netflix show that is based on story came from your platforms. So are you? I guess back then a little bit of advertising, and then now or much later, when you're running the company, is it now turned into licensing deals and you sort of
Mhm.
monetize completely different way now that you're such a real huge platform?
Yes, a very good question. So let me step back to 2012. After we raised the round from Khosla, our Series B, um, we have even more capital. Then we can think about long term a little bit more. The first thing we did was we hired our first data scientist. Um,
Hmm. Wow,
we real
in 2012? 12
Yes,
years ago.
12 years
Amazing.
ago, he built all the machine learning model, all the AI stuff that now is everyone talks about.
Yeah.
But I would say we are one of the pioneers in leveraging AI and machine learning to
Hmm.
analyze, understand our content. So, as an example, the eventually we branded this piece of technology called Story DNA. Story DNA can tell us whether this story arc of the story is good enough to be to to be turned into a movie.
Right.
AI will tell us and give us really reasonably accurate prediction of how this story would be trending in the next 12 months, next 24 months, stuff like that. So we built that. And by the
Mm.
way, that founding data scientist that we hired now is one of our partners at Two Small Fish. So we are working together again after Wattpad. So anyway, I digress. So this is the one of the first things we did after we raised the capital. And then the second thing we did was we are not really a publishing startup. Even everyone is calling us a publishing startup. I don't like that because we don't do publishing, at least not at that time. So I already told everyone, well, this is not has nothing to do with publishing. We focus on reading and writing.
Mm.
People will publish um, uh, differently over time, or maybe they won't even publish, but people will continue to read and write.
Yep.
But then by then we start to, because of perhaps partially because of the AI investment into the company, we realize, wait a minute, we are sitting on a gold mine. We have a lot of original content IP, creative IP generated by the users. Many of them, they have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of fans already.
Right. Right.
And that IP we should not limit those IPs to just reading and writing.
Mm-hmm.
And after all, people come onto Wattpad, they want to enjoy.
Yep.
They want to find joy into reading, and they want to be entertained. And the second we said, wait a minute, they want to be entertained. I think we should think about how we can expand our vision from reading and writing to entertainment.
Mm.
And that's the movie idea, that we can uh, utilize the IP on our platform to further monetize in addition to advertising and
Mm.
in addition to subscription. This is pretty advertising and subscription for a consumer app is pretty obvious, but
Yep.
movie is something that we can uniquely do, and it took us another 4 years for various reasons. We did some small experiments on the side, some very lightweight partnership to test without really full blown launching a movie studio. But in 2016, we have done enough experiments. We have enough proof points. Let's set up a new division called Wattpad Studios, and
Mm.
the end is and then the rest is history. Before we know, we have quite a few Netflix globally #1
Mm.
movies and TV shows, and Hulu, and in the streaming player, streamer in Indonesia, Singapore. Uh, um, we are
Nice.
#1 locally, making movies in Italy and Australia. Before you know, now today we have roughly 100 projects that we're working on simultaneously.
Wow. And that's like the your poster behind you, right? The
Yep,
light and feather and all that. That's all.
yep. Yeah, Light as a Feather was, I think, #1 on Hulu 5 years ago.
Mm.
Right behind me is The Kissing Booth. That one
Mm.
was globally #1 on Netflix. Everyone knows The Kissing Booth, the sex
I
animation.
watched that too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I loved that movie. I watched it twice, not because it came off our platform. I just genuinely love it.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. Um, I want to ask one more question, like sort of
Yeah.
related to I found the is it the Watty Award?
Hmm.
That's also very, very fun. So it's almost like a Oscar that you
Yeah,
on your platform. Is that how it works?
yeah. One thing we learned, I would say um, I started the company not because I'm a writer. Of course, now I write a whole lot more than before, but because I read. The first thing I learned about writer is, is they love writing contests. So
Yeah.
if they love writing contests, guess what? Maybe we should organize an annual contest for them. That's an amazing engagement thing we did for the writers. They feel excited. They have a goal. There's a deadline. They want to submit. It just drives so much engagement. And in one year, um, I remember we had 400,000 submissions in the writing contest. This is absolutely by far the world's largest writing contest,
Wow.
as far as I
Wow.
know. Yeah, so it was incredible engagement.
Amazing. 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 Um, I guess like yeah, we've been talking about sort of your story starting
Mhm.
Wattpad and like some of the cool thing that you did in terms of monetization and growth. Maybe we can switch sort of topic, uh,
Mhm.
chat about you sold the company
Yep.
now 3 years ago.
Yep.
Um, so Wattpad is basically your baby, right? And like what triggered you to decide that, you know what, maybe, after 19 years or so is I need to sort of close this chapter and move on to do something else? Or sort of psychologically, what makes you decide like to wanted
Yeah,
to start a
it
company?
it wasn't we put up a for sale sign. I think we have to say having world-class investors on the board has been super helpful. And one thing that we learned from them is we never talk about the exit strategy. Uh, it never came up in the board meeting. We
Hmm.
just focus on building a great company, and that's the only focus. And even in a side conversation sometimes with the board members, just want to hear what you think about, thinking about exit, asking for their opinion. I'm not even saying we would sell the company, and most of them would say, well, don't worry about that. Focus on building. Focus on building a great company. I think that building a great company became our exit strategy in a way, or the lack of it. And it's a long way to say. In 2021, we had an inbound offer to
Mm.
acquire the company, and well, maybe we should see what the market is thinking about us. We were kind of naive. Yeah,
Yep.
let's run the process. If we don't like it, we don't have to sell. We can get back to work,
Yep.
go back to work, right? And then we talked to Naver, and the Webtoon division of Naver is
Mm.
how they think about content, how they think about monetizing IP, how they think about helping creators.
Mm.
It's almost like a long lost sibling. The from a strategy perspective, it was very very similar. In fact, they show us some of the internal documents. If you are telling me it's coming from Wattpad rather than Webtoon,
Right.
it's virtually identical to some of the
Wow.
vision. So it's such a match made in heaven in a way, because we have what they don't have, and they have what we don't have, and
Yep.
we want to build what they have, and they want to build what we have. So
Yep.
in a way, joining forces, it made perfect sense at that time. Yeah, it became a relatively easy decision.
Got it. For those just I honestly, after I met you, I learned a lot of the storytelling platforms. Maybe just for our audience sake, like what is Webtoon?
Yeah, Webtoon basically is comics, but in a web friendly, and of course, when I say web, it's mobile friendly format. Like if you when you go to download the Webtoon app, and you understand, comic, the old school comic designed for book publishing was
Mm.
catered to that form factor, but on the phone you don't flip, right? You
Yeah.
infinitely scroll,
Yeah.
and the type of content is also more geared toward our demographics. Our demographics, core demographics for Wattpad and Webtoon is under 25. So the content itself is not the Marvel, the superhero is more, I would say, uh, um, more modernized, for lack of a
Okay.
better term.
Good.
Perhaps modernized is not the best way to describe, because Marvel is very modernized too, but um, it's natively mobile and
Mhm.
natively for the original content is just native for this generation. So Webtoon is a massive business,
Yeah.
as not just in Korea, but in Japan and perhaps other parts of Southeast Asia. And in the US, it's really popular as well.
Yep. Yep. Um, awesome. I need to pretend to be like Gen Z and start, reading more. Um, cool. For the audience who is just joining us now, if you have any questions, feel free to put it on the LinkedIn live comment, and we will go to some of your questions when we go further with the interview. With about 25 minutes left.
Mhm,
And Alan, so maybe now switch to another topic. Now, fast forward today,
yeah,
2024.
yeah,
Um, you are now part of Two Small Fish Ventures
hmm
out in Toronto, and congratulations. Tell us about your new fund. Like, what is your focus in terms of investment? What excite you? Like, if
hmm
I'm going to pitch you Wattpad 2.0, are you going to invest in
hmm
me? Love to learn more about your focus and thesis for the fund.
Yeah, one thing I did not have a chance to mention was my wife Eva um, joined us when we were a struggling startup around the
Mm,
dining table. She was not a co-founder, one of our co-founders, but definitely one of the founding team members.
mm,
She helped us grow uh, grow the user base from 10,000 to tens of millions before she left. So in 2014, um, after she left, she started angel investing and really quickly turned this into an angel fund and
mm,
then a proper GPLP, proper venture fund. We
mm,
call it Two Small Fish Fund Two, and then now we are at Fund Three, our third fund. It's a 30 million, roughly to 30 million US dollar fund. So the fund itself has been almost 9 years, right? I'm
mm.
one of the co-founders, but I'm co-founder by name. Uh, I only talk about investment because I was running Wattpad, right?
Yeah,
I was an investor only around the dining table, maybe occasionally help out some of the founders on call, that kind of thing. But now, after I left Wattpad, the CEO position, well, I'm not sure I want to start another new company. I started three already. The fourth one is kind of repetitive. Um, and I would say, as a venture investor, even though I've been, maybe 1% of my time working as a venture investor, I actually quite like it. And now, after doing this full time for almost 2 years, after I left the CEO position, I can absolutely confirm that I loved it. I
mm,
loved it because it gives me all the adrenaline. Uh, Working with founders in the early days, uh, some of them are struggling, and I can provide all the support I could. But some of them are amazing. I can also help them grow from 100% year over year to 200%, through sharing my experience. I can absolutely make an impact, make a measurable and noticeable impact, and that makes me super happy. And I can work on multiple things all at once.
yeah,
So to me, I really enjoy it. Back to the fund itself, we we have a investment thesis. Keep a long story short, as we are looking for early stage companies. We don't want to be too prescriptive on the stage. It could be pre-seed, could be Series A, but the key is they most of them, if not all of them, they are pre-product market fit. I think this is
yeah,
the sweet spot. early pre-product market fit, pre-revenue is perfectly okay. But what we're looking for is, will this product, will this protocol, or will this platform completely change the user behavior? The
Mm,
the user behavior could be consumer, could be business users. Our thesis is, if we can change, if the product, platform, or protocol can change the behavior, this will give us a 10x return, and early stage will give us another 10x. So we are looking for potentially help the company grow another 100x from when we invested.
mm,
In terms of areas, we focus on AI, we focus on protocols, we focus on sustainable compute or sustainable computing. So we invest in 3D chips, we invest in AI chips, we
mm,
invest in foundational model AI companies, we invest in generative AI companies, or just
mm,
predictive AI companies. I would say our recent investments from Fund 3, we wrote almost 8 checks right now. 2 are working on. We invested in 6. All but 1 is AI or AI related, like AI chip company.
nice. Awesome. Cool. You love my very fast transcribing your focus in our banner. Um, anyway, anyway, and by the way, before I forget, what's your typical or range of check size?
Check size, first check could be $1 million or even higher, but typically as low as a quarter. But we don't like to be this low, maybe $500,000 to $1 million would be the sweet spot. We lead, we co-lead, but sometimes we syndicate as well. It depends on the situation, because, as I mentioned, it's a wide range, right? Sometimes for like semiconductor company, we might come in a little bit later.
Mm,
Uh, we need that validation. But for say software AI companies, we could write write the first check, as long as we have a beta product, it's fine. It's a wide range. That's why the average check size doesn't tell you the whole story, because each case is different. But one thing for sure, we only invest in areas that we have domain expertise in. Like
yep.
AI, we ran an AI company for more than a decade. Uh, um, we like blockchain protocols. We did that too. And semiconductor. Well, my movie poster may give you the impression that I might be more an IMDb person than an engineer. I do have an IMDb profile. I'm an executive producer of some of the movies, but I would also say I might be the only engineer who has an IMDb profile. I'm an electrical engineer, so I understand semiconductor. Eva used to work for ATI, now AMD, and my partner Brandon used to work for NVIDIA for a short stint as well. So we are very fluent in terms of both hardware and software.
Love it. I love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. Um, I'm going to actually take a few audience questions
Hmm.
that we see, and I'm going to mix it up with my own interpretation of it. Maybe we'll start with Jason. So Jason Jason Ma was asking about how Ellen go back to some of the topic of U.S. North America focus question.
Mm,
How is it relevant to Hong Kong market? Or maybe he missed the point. But
yeah.
actually, I want to switch this question a little bit. It's more or less there are a lot of Hong Kong founders. Hong Kong is a starting point.
Mhm.
7 or 8 million people,
Yep.
but we obviously need to pick, right? Do we
Yep.
go north to go to China?
Hmm.
And I don't know how to say it in English, but like in China, a lot of people love to read 小说 的
Yeah.
小说.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, similar thing happened. Or come to the US, which is very, very high
Yep.
ARPU
Hmm.
countries.
Yep.
So if I'm a Hong Kong founder starting out and thinking about sort of consumer
Yep.
type product,
Hmm.
then how should I think about it in terms of go to market?
Yeah. So Really, really good question. The reason I touch on the global go-to-market uh, for Wattpad, why it's relevant to Hong Kong, is because I live in Canada. I don't live in the US. Canada, population-wise, is a small country. We only have 40 million people, right?
Mm,
US is almost 10 times larger. And even US is only 4% of the world's population. So going back to Wattpad, since day one, we don't want to build a Canadian-only company in terms of our audience, our users. We don't even want to build just a North American company. We really early on, we already supported languages like Vietnamese, Spanish. We picked the world's top 10 languages, and we make
mm,
sure we give them sufficient support. It was a bootstrap company. When I say support, it wasn't like a full support. It wasn't their quirks, in the product, I have to say, right? But at least if you write a Vietnamese story, you can use the product. Maybe barely you can use the product, but you
right.
can see the Vietnamese option in one of our features. I
Mm,
think this is really important for entrepreneurs living in a small market. Since day one, you have to pick your swim lane, and your swim lane absolutely should not just be your local market because you are in a very small market.
mm,
But whether for Hong Kong entrepreneurs, you pick China or rest of the world, I think that's um, I would say depends on the context, right? There's no right or wrong answer. You have to pick the right one for your type of company. But I would also say there are two internets. One is
mm,
the Chinese internet. The other is the rest of the world internet. These two internets are not too connected because of the firewall, of the Great Firewall, right? So especially when you build a consumer product, really, really hard to build a product that works in both.
mm.
You probably cannot find a single example that have a single app that works in both. Even
Yeah.
TikTok, they split the code. It's they copy the idea. Well, it's the same idea, but it's completely different code base, right? If you look at uh, many other products, they either pick one or they kind of develop two different products because the user
Mm,
experience expectation are very different. There are a million things that are different.
mm. And just to clarify, in your case, it is one code base for the whole world, right?
Except for China, we purposely stay out of China.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Okay. Something to think about. Obviously, B2B, B2C is very different,
Mhm.
but
Yep.
yeah, I do think that a lot of the Hong Kong founders often need to think about it. But yeah, please talk to all your fellow amazing founders who are literally everywhere in the US and China and pick their brain. And it's very different. Very different depends on what you're working on. All
Mhm.
right.
Mhm.
I'm maybe a couple more question before we play our final game. um, I think a lot of founders also want to ask a little bit more details on your M&A experience.
Yep.
Um, are there any things that you think like if somebody called me and want to buy my company today, should
Mhm.
I just say no? Or like what are like some of the tips that at least yes, I should focus and build my companies, but sometimes there are people who are interested.
Mhm.
And so what would be some of your guidelines or tips
Yeah.
for us
Yeah.
to
The
think
the the guideline is definitely maybe.
about?
So
Yeah.
yeah, there's no guideline. But kind of back to what I talk about. Um, you might want to think about M&A, but don't overthink about M&A because it will kind of force you. It might force you to do something unnatural because if you if you think about, hey, if I implement this feature or if I do this one thing, it would make a potential acquirer happy and they would buy us. Forget about this. The likelihood of that
Yeah.
happening is extremely, extremely low. And because there's so many dependencies that are completely out of your control.
Yep.
The number one thing that is completely out of your control and you wouldn't even know is what's the internal corporate strategy. You have no idea how they want to expand. They would not share this externally. You might think you're a good fit, but they might be going off a completely different direction, and you would be wasting all your time building features, doing this, establishing this one partnership
Yeah.
just to hope the acquisition to happen. It won't happen. That being said, um, always keep a good conversation, good dialogue with the potential acquirers in the ecosystem, not necessarily in the spirit of acquisition, but in the spirit of knowing your potential competitor, knowing your potential partner. This will
Yep.
benefit you in many ways. And in many cases, some of those potential partnerships might turn out to be a full-blown acquisition down the road. But you sow the seed without thinking M&A, but focus on how to make this partnership turn your company into an even greater company.
Yep, completely agree. I think the minute that if you're a founder, you're trying to sell your company, you're already at a lower hand.
Precisely.
Yeah,
Great companies are being bought, not being sold.
that's absolutely the golden statement I think all of us should think about.
Mhm.
Don't try to build companies because you're trying to sell it. In fact, any potential acquirer will run really, really far away if they
Yeah,
know that that's your intention. Um,
precisely.
um, with that said, uh, okay, maybe one final question, and then I would love to play this one of my favorite game, bullish or bearish. Uh, actually, sorry. Before I go ADD, really quick advertising. Uh, Alan, Alfred, Hui, um, Michael Tong, who is I think Michael, who's the board member many years on NetEase, who's on this call right now. All of us from Singapore, China, Canada, Bay Area, San Francisco, all going to come back to Hong Kong end of March, the last week of March. And we're going to host a couple events, and especially the one on March 27th evening is going to be a fun cocktail event
Mhm.
with hundreds of people. We welcome all of you guys to come and hang out with us, because really is all about great network, and Hong Kong people should support Hong Kong people. So
Yeah,
please come join us, and I will post more information shortly online. Okay,
yeah.
so
And
final
I'll be
question.
there too, by the way. If you
Yes,
want to see me in person, meet in person, make sure you come.
yes. So come prepare with your questions and pick Alan's brain on March 27th evening. So, with that said, final question is coming from our audience. Failure. I think a lot of sometimes I feel like a lot of Hong Kong founders don't want to start companies because I'm really afraid to fail. I spent my mom pay for my college. If I'm going to start a company and I fail, that's like very I'm no face. So in your journey for the last 20 years or so, what is like the one failure, or how would you do it differently, or how do you think about like failure in general?
Okay, so well, first of all, I mentioned I started 3 companies. The first one was a complete disaster. It failed. We turned off the lights. However, I learned so much through that experience, and I would absolutely say, um, for Wattpad we avoided so many mistakes because we made that mistake in our first company, and we would not be able we did not repeat the same mistake. Not saying Wattpad did not make any mistakes. Yeah, there are always new ways to make new mistakes. So uh, I guess forget about this. Your perfect record will be broken at some points when you run a company, because you will make a lot of mistakes along the way. There's no way around this. The the trick is don't don't let it down. Don't let the mistakes uh, push you down. You right back up, and then you learn from the mistakes, and the next time you do it better. And if I look at my track record, it's not a perfect track record either, but the failures, the learnings are real. It really helps you down the road.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Okay, we only have 5 minutes. I'm always
Mhm.
trying to end this on time, and we're going to actually end this with a really quick game. Um, and Alan, you don't really have to say anything. You just really thumbs up, thumbs down. And I'm going to say the industry. Oh, by the way, one last thing before I like end this and the game. For two small fish, do you
Yeah.
usually prefer to lead or follow in terms of investment?
We prefer to lead, but we um, sometimes we syndicate as well. Maybe half the time we lead, half the time we syndicate. We're pretty flexible.
Okay, awesome. And okay, let's play this game, and then we'll share with you how to get in touch with you if our founders want to pitch you. All right. Okay, just thumbs up, thumb down. Okay. Uh, healthcare, uh, ed tech, which is education tech. I like ed tech, although raise capital don't invest. Sorry. Advertising tech. Okay, yeah, same. Hardware and semiconductor. That's also for us. Autonomous car, EV battery.
As an investor into new companies or this
New.
space, new
Uh,
invest. Yeah, I think the window of opportunity is behind us now.
oh, oh,
But
wow.
this is well, I think it's very nuanced, very hard to just do a thumbs up and thumbs
Yeah,
down. I think autonomous car is massively, massively important. Don't get me wrong, but I think the winners already existed.
that's right. That's right. Okay. How about AI?
Absolutely,
Okay. How
no
about?
doubt.
Oh, I love it. Oh, you're having this over Apple. I love it. Okay. How about crypto?
Um, okay, okay, well,
Okay.
it's very nuanced. We invest in blockchain too, but we in a way we steer clear from cryptocurrencies.
Yep.
Allow me to use 1 second to
Of
well,
course.
10 seconds to explain. I do believe in digital currency. No, don't get me wrong. The problem is the regulation, right? You cannot get around. We are talking about money. It's very very hard to get around the regulation. I think it would take a lot of non-technical culture change to make it happen. So I don't think it's that investable right now for many reasons, but it doesn't mean I'm not bullish on blockchain.
Yep. 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 Uh, yep. For me personally, I still look and I am bullish. All right.
Mhm.
How about gaming? Not for me, even though I love enjoying playing more games. Okay. All right. Alan, I think with that said, that is our end of our
Mhm.
conversation. There's the end of the game. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight, especially it's
Mhm.
a little bit late on Toronto time. I look forward to meeting you in person um, end of March,
Yep.
and we all of us on this call will get the chance to meet each other in person.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing all the Hong Kongers and say "你好" at the end of March to see everyone in person.
Love. I can't wait to see everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks again for inviting me. Bye bye.
Of course. Bye, Alan.
Bye bye.